All right, fill this second with some catchy guitar music because my compadre today is not with me. Guys, Chris Pesek, real estate broker associate at Pesek Properties here. I'm a real estate agent in Austin, Texas. The gentleman that normally plays guitar with me, Steve Babcock, who's a mortgage loan originator in Austin as well, has a couple of things going on today. So I'm going to be rolling solo. Normally, this show, well, not normally, always, this show, what we do is we talk about the Austin real estate market, talk about mortgages, talk about, what we're seeing on the ground. Sometimes we talk macroeconomics and things like that about things that are driving the Austin real estate market. And really, we just try to answer questions. So if you're jumping on, whether it's the first time or the 50th time, if you have questions, put them in the comments. We can see these things real time. And so if you've got questions, it always makes the show go easier, especially when I'm doing it by myself, like I am for at least a portion of the day today. Definitely like answering questions. And if I don't have an answer for you, I will get you one. And if you're watching this after the fact on YouTube or Facebook or something like that, you can always drop your questions in and we will find them and get to your questions and answer anything you've got. So what I'm doing today, in absence of Steve for a little bit, is I'm going to jump into a couple of different things that I've been doing lately. First of all, and if you've seen the last couple of weeks, you know that I've been tapping into different markets around Austin. And I'm real big that local real estate's a big thing. We talk all the time about the national numbers and the average or median values are going up or they're going down, and we see these crashes and we see these these bumps in value and all this other stuff. But it really doesn't do good, in my opinion, to do anything with those numbers unless you're buying real estate on a national level. So what we do here is get down into realistically into micro markets around Austin. I shouldn't say micro. We're not going to dive into specific neighborhoods and subdivisions and stuff like that. But I've identified 6 suburbs in Austin or around Austin that I'm really paying attention to. And these are the suburbs that I think are worth paying attention to for several different reasons. The suburbs are Dripping Springs, and the reason that I pay attention to Dripping Springs is because that's where I live, and I read that data daily, and I breathe that data. Easy for me to stay on top of, and it's a popular suburb. Wimberley, which is a little bit south of Dripping Springs, another popular suburb, a little further removed from Austin, and its own little subset down there. Look at Bastrop quite a bit. And Bastrop is Southeast Austin. The reason that's interesting to me is because the price points out there are low, and starting to come up pretty quickly. And there's a lot of new construction out there. But the reason for all of that, if you hadn't heard me talk about it before, Bastrop is where, or close to Bastrop, is where little companies like Tesla and SpaceX and the Boring Company have their facilities. There's also, if you've ever heard of Zoho, Zoho is a web-based company that has just places all over the world where they bring in local talent and utilize that talent. Well, Zoho's got a pretty big campus out by the Austin airport on the southeast side of town also. So another really interesting market to pay attention to. Kyle Buda, which is just down south of Austin on I-35. Again, very close in suburb, a lot of new home construction in there. And prices that have been a little bit lower but are escalating very quickly. And then on the northeast side of town, Samsung, the reason or I'm sorry, Taylor, it'll soon be known as Samsung more than likely. The reason I pay attention is, yeah, there's a small semiconductor plant going in up there to the tune of about 1 million square feet, I think, by Samsung. That thing is huge if you haven't been up there lately. And then also on that northeast side or north side of town, Georgetown, which, again, for reasons of jobs and everything else, something that I'm paying attention to really closely. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about what's happening in Taylor, what I'm seeing in Taylor. And the thing that's going to jump out about this, I'm going to go ahead and present this. The thing that's going to jump out to you about Taylor is there's not a lot going on there right now. And so it may not make sense to you why I'm looking at this. I mean, total active listings right now are 69 listings, and that number's down a little bit. Move-in ready homes, I always like to analyze these. This is what can be closed in 30 days. This is a typical escrow period here in Texas. So that's something you can walk into this weekend. You can put an offer on these houses, and in 30 days you can be moving in. So I call those move-in ready homes. Under contract houses, these are ones that are either pending or active under contract. 17, so not a big number, and all these numbers are going down. Average days on market is pretty high for the Austin area, 114. This is where the story starts getting interesting for Taylor. Average sold price in Taylor 725.8. That's a big number. That's Dripping Springs territory. That's a big number for Taylor, Texas, because if you don't know anything about Taylor, Taylor is an old farming community, old cotton community, old ranching community. Best known for their mascots, the Taylor Ducks. It's a small school and best known for Louis Miller barbecue. I mean, Taylor is not much. That average sold price is really high, but when you look at the median sales price, 300,000, that starts to tell the story a little bit, because you've got sales prices in here anywhere from about 150,000 for houses that need to be renovated, up to $2 million and $3 million, because you're starting to get a little bit of move in from executives ahead of Samsung. And these aren't necessarily even Samsung executives. These are also, I'll talk about it a lot. A lot of times you start seeing smaller companies that are coming in with these larger companies that are having to move their people in too. So if Samsung brings in 10,000 jobs, the rule of thumb that I've always heard is there's going to be at least 4 other jobs that come in with each of those. So if Samsung brings in 10,000, we're going to see 50,000 additional jobs. And I think that the average household size at this point is still around 2.5 or 2.6. So we're looking at upwards of 100,000 people influx in the Taylor area. Now, are they all going to end up in Taylor? No, they're not all going to end up in Taylor. Some are going to be in Hutto, some are Georgetown, some are Austin and all of that. But again, you're looking at an influx of over 100,000 people into the Taylor area, probably over the next 5 years. That is a huge growth spurt for Taylor. And then closed in the last 30 days. I'll get to that number. Again, December was a little bit off in 2023, and we've seen that in all the markets that I'm doing this on. So that doesn't surprise me, that number, knowing that there's only 17 under contract. That's about 30% of what's under contract, and that's pretty normal for a given point in time up there. Now, inventory short. The thing that I'm noticing here is that resale inventory is far outpacing the new construction. There's only about 12 new construction homes that are on the market right now. Now, some of that fell off at the beginning of the year. That's going to be coming back. But there's not a whole lot of new construction homes that are complete right now. And that's going to be changing in the near future. And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and switch this over so I can see if anybody's got comments or anything. And again, if you've got comments, put them in, or questions, because it makes this a lot easier for me. But anyway, what I'm really interested on with Taylor is, I don't know what stage of completion that Samsung plant is right now. If I'm guessing, it looks like it may be 50% complete. I don't know. I don't know what chip plants look like, but we're not seeing the bump yet in Taylor in terms of home sales. There's some of the more expensive ones are selling, and we're starting to see some of that new construction come to completion, and that stuff is selling. But as of right now, everything's a little bit slow. My prediction is that as this Taylor plant, Samsung plant, starts getting closer to completion and they start hiring people, you're going to see a completely different story out in that area. And I think the builders know this. Now, I know that there's builders that are trying to get houses on the ground in Taylor right now. City council out there is trying to be very, very particular about what they're approving. So right now there's a little bit of a rub where the builders are trying to get houses started. City council's, kind of holding them off a little bit. And I think that that's going to create a pretty big need for housing probably in the next 12 to 14 months out there. I know that there's builders that have construction on the ground. You can buy a 2-bed, 2-bath, a mile from the Samsung plant, brand new house, for under 300,000. And I think the price on that was like 279, brand new. And again, when Taylor starts seeing these workers come in and these workers being hired, I think those houses are going to be really, really hard to come by. So I'm starting to pay attention to Taylor. I'm starting to give market updates on Taylor just from the simple perspective of, look, if you're an investor and you're trying to find, hey, where might there be good appreciation over the next 10 years? You may want to check out that Samsung corridor up on the south side of Taylor. Just, call it a hunch. I could be wrong, but that might be something pretty valuable for you. Again, if you've got questions, if you've got thoughts, if you think I'm an idiot and you don't think Taylor's ever going to turn into anything, drop them in the comments. I've been known to be wrong. It's not going to hurt my feelings if I'm wrong. I'm going out on a limb, even predicting this stuff. Speaking of predicting, the next thing I'm going to do is start talking through some predictions that I have for these other suburbs, 2024 predictions. And I'm going to start with Dripping Springs. Our interest rates roughly, and I'll say this because Steve's not here, and he'll go on a tirade about what he can and can't say and what the federal government will allow him to do because he's a mortgage broker. But I can get away with some different generalities than he can. So I'm going to say that right now, our interest rates on average are 6.7. And irregardless of is irregardless a word? I don't even know if that's a word. Regardless of credit scores and stuff like that, because all of that stuff fluctuates. We've heard Steve talk about it. But let's just say that they're 6.7. So what I'm doing is going down the rabbit hole at this point, and I'm looking at the suburbs, and I'm going back to the last two times in history that we had 6.7% interest rates. Those two times were 2002 and 2006. Okay, 2002 and 2006 is the last time we had similar interest rates. Now, I know the methodology is flawed. You can say it all you want. It's fine. You can get pissed at me for doing this, but that's the only thing that I can go back to. And I know houses were cheaper back then and all that other stuff. But I went back and I pulled a 3-year average and median. For 2002, I went from 2001 to 2003. And then for 2006, I did 2005 to 2007. In Dripping Springs ISD, which is how I pulled data out here because there's two major zip codes, 78620, 78737. I pulled data on those years, and it's interesting. And I don't have it in form yet that I can put it up on the screen. I apologize. I was just working on this earlier, but it's kind of interesting what I'm seeing. And I'm going to give you my thoughts on Dripping Springs after this. So that period between 2001 and 2003, the average appreciation over those 3 years was 3% appreciation. Okay. I'm going to set the bar right there and say, guys, for Central Texas, that's a pretty normal appreciation if you look throughout history. Austin averages between 3 and 5%. The outlying areas are somewhere between 2 and 4. They're a little smaller appreciation than Austin in general. That's throwing out the outliers like COVID. We know that that's an outlier. It's not going to happen again. If it is going to happen again, the same shit's going to happen that happened last time. Prices are going to go through the roof. And for the next 5 years, people are going to talk about a housing bubble that's coming. Okay, I made that prediction also. But 3% is pretty normal for our market. And so here's a caveat. I say if our interest rates stay about where they are, call it 6.5, 6.75. If they stay about where they are, I think that's the appreciation we're going to see in Dripping Springs. Last year, the median price in Dripping Springs was up 4.5%. I think this year we're going to see something similar if we have stable interest rates. Call it 2 to 4%, somewhere in that range. It'll be normal historical market. And my buddy here is popping on. Here we go. And I'm going to remind you guys that, if you've got comments, throw them in. Steve, how are you, bud?
I have COVID, my friend. I'm very sorry.
You're fine. You're fine. I'm just to bring you up to speed. It's the second little comment that I sent you. I'm talking about market predictions. I'm talking about Dripping Springs right now. So real quick recap. I went back to the last two times that Dripping Springs had, or that we had similar interest rates to the environment that we have right now. And I'm calling it 6.7 for rough numbers. Okay. The first one was '01 or was 2002. So I pulled averages from '01 to '03, and the appreciation in Dripping Springs during that time was about 3% a year. Okay, pretty normal historically. And that's what I'm saying. If we see interest rates stay about where they are, I think we're going to see normal appreciation. We saw 4.5 last year. We'll call it between 2 and 4 this year. I think that's a pretty safe bet. If Well, before I say if, let's talk through the rest of it. The interesting thing about '01 to '03, that 3-year period, the median actually dropped 2%, which is
Mm.
interesting. We had an increase in average, a decrease in median, which is what's happening coincidentally in Austin over the last 12 months. The median's dropping because people are finding that entry level price point. We've got a little bit of, we'll call it an economic turmoil that are causing people to lower what they're looking for. And so median dropped just like it has in the Austin area over the last 12 months. Average went up, which is exactly what you would expect to see, historically in the Austin area. So that's data point one. The second one is that 2006, which I took 2005 to 2007. This is crazy. Now we all know what happened in 2007 and the market collapse and all the financial disaster that ensued after that. But Austin didn't really see a giant reduction after this. So check this out. In 2005, or that period, we saw a total of a 28% average home price increase in the Austin area. That's almost 10% a year, or over 9% a year. Okay. The median during that same time is up 22%, so 7% a year. Again, trailing a little bit. But again, we saw a 28% increase the last time interest rates were around this range. Okay. What do you take out of that? The difference between '02 and '06?
So '02, I believe, was a technology crash, and '06 was a housing market crash. And
Okay.
so, of course, it's going to be a little bit the dot-com bubble, right?
And that's
So,
interesting. Okay.
yeah, you were mentioning all those years, and I'm sitting there thinking, oh yeah, okay, I remember
The
back then. I'm
the
feeling
tech
pretty old actually.
the tech bubble
Um,
started in '98 here. That's right.
yeah, and so that would heavily affect us today if we had another tech bubble as well. Right?
And oh man, that's really interesting because I didn't look at it through that lens. And so when we're seeing like I said, right now we're seeing a decrease in median value, but the average is staying pretty stable and even increasing. Um, Sounds like people have less money to spend. And you
I
just
was
linked
going
it
to
to the
say, what
tech
does
bubble.
that mean? But yeah, you just hit the nail on the head.
Man,
The demand will stay the same in terms of people wanting houses. It's such a strange thing. You think of supply and demand, like we were going over last week. But when you have something that everyone wants, and the demand is always there, then there's a bunch of outside factors. And right now, people just can't afford homes like they used to,
that's
unless
it.
they're in the lower price point. That's really the big difference.
And so that's gonna dictate my prediction for 2024. Then I know in 2 shows ago you and I predicted interest rates are going to drop 1.5%, and I still feel like that. But my prediction is overall, if interest rates are stable, let's just call them stable this year. I think we're going to see a normal year. I think we're going to see 3 to 4% appreciation on the outlying areas, and I think Austin's probably going to be 5 to 6% appreciation. How do you
I,
feel
I
about
would
that?
I would consider that generous.
Okay.
However, I don't think you're too far off from where I would predict. And of course, these are all guesses, so who knows, right? But I would say it's probably a little too much.
Okay.
5 or 6% after last year, I would be that would be awesome. I think we might get 3 or 4%,
Okay.
appreciation. I think this is a year for slowing down.
Okay.
I think that once we get to the end of the year, you're going to see some steam, like a lot of it.
So
But
still within historical norms, though.
So, I mean, if you look at like right now, the feeling I'm getting right now is that more people are out looking,
Hmm.
but less of those that are looking are ready to pull the trigger, right? So it's
Yeah.
it's it's almost like you have this big pool of people that want to go swimming. And the temperature has been freezing and it just dropped by 15 degrees. And a few of them were like, you know what? Eff it, man, I'm jumping in.
Yep.
Right. And before they go, they kind of dip their foot in the water, right? And they're like, yeah, all right, I'm good with this, right? But most of the rest of them are just sitting around the sideline. They put the towels down, right? They're headed towards the water, but they're not quite ready to jump in yet. And there's a lot of people out there like that. And then for a while there, lenders were getting so beat up by builders that a lot of lenders just kind of threw in the towel. They're like, you know what, let the builder have it. I'm never gonna beat them. So fine, whatever. And today, man, we are getting lenders that are taking scraps off the table for their loans, right? I mean, we're talking, let's go to the boss and see if we can discount the whole thing. Make it, instead of a lead that I brought in, we'll make it a branch lead, which is something you can do when you work in the correspondent lender division. It's kind of frowned upon. It's not really supposed to be done, but they do it anyways. Right. We had one loan today that's shopping us with a very reputable local lender who lowered the cost by $12,000 in one day. And it's like, all right, well, and then they're doing it on they're presenting the only document you can present where you're not locked into the numbers, which is a fee worksheet. So if they were to show a loan estimate, this could be a learning lesson for everybody.
Good.
If you get an LE or a loan estimate from a lender, that lender then must honor those numbers. If they say, hey, it's a 6% interest rate for no cost at closing, and they screwed up, well, they have a really angry branch manager because they've got to eat those costs, right? They have to provide you those numbers because they put it on a loan estimate. It's real. If you put it on a fee worksheet, well, it's a good estimate, but it's not really set in stone. Dude, and here we are, this one particular borrower who suddenly goes and shops us and gets a quote they send back to us and we match it, and then they get another quote from the same lender that's $12,000 better. It's like, all right, well, number one, have them put it on the feet to the fire sheet, the loan estimate, right? Don't have them come back with that on a loan estimate, or I'm sorry, on a fee worksheet. Right. And number two, why wouldn't they have just done something like that in the first place? It's one thing to come down a couple $100. Hey, look, I'll take it out of my commission. I want you as a client, that kind of thing. But it's another thing to give you in a completely different deal. Yeah. $12,000 off is not. I mean, that's
huge.
The closing costs were $13,000. So to have it be $12,000 less the next day is astronomical. I don't know how they're doing it without Yeah. I do know how they're doing it, but yeah, we won't go there. We won't go there. Make sure you get a loan estimate. Yeah.
so there you go. That's a little bit of a 2024 market prediction, and I learned something just then. I didn't realize the difference between the two. That's good stuff, man. All right.
Thanks.
So since you came on late, last thing that I've got for today is. And I was on a podcast this morning with a realtor out in Virginia, and we were talking the Austin market, right?
And sorry, everybody, I was asleep. I have a big personality, so it's hard for me to act sick. But trust me, I'm not happy right now. I'm very sick. But sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry to you too. That was not okay.
Good. No, you're good, man. Look, I can handle this stuff by myself. It's all good.
You didn't fall apart? It wasn't a train wreck?
I did not fall apart. We had 80 people on, and when people saw that you weren't playing the guitar at the beginning,
they just
stopped falling off like flies.
He's not here. I'm not joining.
I'm not. That dude with that gray beard. I don't know about him.
It's good. It's wise. This is a wise beard, my friend.
Yeah, that's right. Wisdom comes from pain, not age. Yeah,
that's true. Never heard of that. That's very, very true.
Okay. So this was the question that was posed to me by Todd this morning on his podcast, and I'm going to pose this question to you. I'm altering it a little bit. Todd Sachs, he's the realtor out in Virginia, that I know. Anyway, if you had to give one piece of advice to somebody buying a house in the Austin area, okay, and it can be where to buy, what to buy, how to buy, when to buy, whatever, does not matter. And it doesn't matter if they're, if you want to give it to a residential buyer, an apartment buyer, a duplex buyer, an investment buyer, doesn't matter. I don't care. I want you to give me a scenario and give me the best piece of advice that you could give to somebody in Austin right now. Do you want me to go first so you can think about it?
Well, I have such a different plethora of advice that I'd give to different types of people.
Yeah, and that's
Like a 70-year-old home buyer is very different from an 18-year-old home buyer, right?
Yep.
Doing it for the very first time. Life goals would be different. So I suppose I don't want to say pigeonholed, but if I must give one piece of advice that is a blanket across all buyer or borrowers, I would suggest that after you've done your homework and you're working with whom you like, stop shopping and just trust them. I know that sounds crazy, but
wow.
I've seen so many different scenarios where when the borrowers don't trust the lender or the realtor, or are suspicious of something that they're going to be doing right or wrong, details, right? But they end up shooting themselves in the foot quite badly. I just read this article on the internet yesterday about this home buying couple that there was this miscommunication because they hated these bins and they wanted to buy the house. Get rid of the bins. You got to get rid of the bins. I don't care what just don't talk to me about it. Just get rid of them. Okay. And then the sellers were trying to say, yeah, but the bins have all of our pool equipment in them, and you're buying a home with a pool and you need all this pool supply equipment stuff. And the sellers didn't want to hear about it. They didn't want anything to do with negotiation. I don't care. Just shut up. Just get rid of the bins. Then they move in and they're like, where's all the pool supplies? Right. And while that may be an egregious example, that is still an example of what I'm talking about. Like I had one guy one time who I got a really great FHA rate for. But he had a friend in California who was a lender who kept telling him, nope, that's not where the rates are. That's a bad rate. He's giving you a bad rate. Well, I mean, come on, man. I was giving him the rate I saw on the computer. I wasn't being disingenuous. I was being a good lender, right? I'm locking them in. And so at the end of the day, we were 15 days away from closing. The guy says to me, you still haven't given me the better rate. And I'm like, look, man, I can't close you in time anymore. You've just shot yourself in the foot. I can't get you to the closing table anymore and do this in time, especially with what we've dealt with so far. And so, you're free to find another lender. And, I fired the guy. And I later found he did find another lender and had an almost 1% higher interest rate than the one that I was giving him. Same loan program, right? And it was like, you should have listened. I know the market. I study the market. But if you don't trust me, then you immediately think I'm trying to take advantage of you and you won't listen to me, and then you fail. So this dude failed badly.
Yeah.
And again, that's probably another egregious example, but I could go on.
Well, but the problem is a person like that at that point is blaming you, like it was your fault, not theirs. And I know
what fault, right?
I mean,
who did what wrong?
Yeah, no, I know. That's what I'm saying. But they're going to tell everybody, yeah, this lender screwed me over, and he was trying to do this, and that's the reason I ended up with a higher interest rate. Instead of going, damn it, I really screwed that up.
I got to tell you, for those that don't know, I have an autistic child, and the powers that be will ask you questions like, how would you like your child to behave? Write down and how you'd like your child to behave. It seems like such a stupid question.
I'm
because
laughing.
I'd like my child to behave like my other child who's down the hallway learning how to read and write. Okay, how's that sound? That's how I'd like him to behave, right? And they have this giant questionnaire where you're supposed to fill out how this teacher is then going to teach your special needs child. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, like, well, hold on a second. Aren't these people, don't they have master's degrees? Aren't they specialists? Right? Don't they know what they're talking about? Why do I get to tell them how to train my child? And what are they even asking me these stupid questions for? Like, what kind of progress would you like to see with your kid? I don't know. Maybe he could say yes and no and talk, right? I mean, is that the dumbest question you've ever heard in your entire life? Right. And then to suggest that I know more than these people do, who've gone to school for multiple years and had to prove themselves. Right. And so I'm telling you, man, the world is backwards, and people need to trust their professionals once they've made the choice. Once you've made the choice, you've made the choice. And if it sucks, then you've made that bed, sleep in it. Right. Make sure you do a good job up front. Sorry. What's going on now? Well, who doesn't?
Michael Smith said, who doesn't trust a beer drinking, guitar singing lender?
Who gets angry too?
Who gets
Passionate,
angry?
yes.
Right.
Thank you, sir.
That's awesome because at the end of the day, it's this: you as a consumer, you have a job in this, and your job is to vet your lender, vet your realtor, and make a good choice. And then at that
Right.
point, your choice is your choice, like you just said. Now trust them.
Right. Their job is to do a good job for you. You start shopping and doing things after all the balls and all the pieces are moving and everything's in motion. You really slow things down, right?
Yeah.
The time to shop is not when you go under contract. That's too late now. Literally, the clock is ticking, tick, 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 tick. We are trying to get to the end, and you're shopping me with other lenders. You should have done that 3 weeks ago, before we even made offers. You can compare a rate at any time of the day. It's 315. What's your rate? What's your rate? What's your rate? What are my costs? All that stuff. You can do that before the fact. Anyways, yeah.
Yeah. I got it.
I'm feeling passionate, sir. I should probably calm down.
I got you. So I'm gonna go a completely different way on my piece of advice.
Yeah. What's your piece of advice?
I'm gonna take it from the perspective of somebody that's pretty flexible, right? Somebody that can choose where they live and kind of work from home and has a little bit of money. Okay. I'm going to be talking to that.
Well, I thought this was advice for all. Yeah, all right, keep going.
Well, no, I told you could give it to anybody. You just
fine.
So what I was doing was I was trying to figure out what is the most suppressed market in Austin right now, and I think nope. I think personally it is lakefront property on Lake Travis. And my piece of advice is if you can and you want to buy something and, maybe it's a 2 or 3 year house, maybe it's a 5-year house. I think you go after lakefront property and you beat up the owners on it right now. And you just hang on to that sucker until the lake's full and then sell it. How do you feel about that advice? You live close to the lake.
The price points, that's wonderful advice, because the price points that are, and we touched on this earlier in the show, the price points that are sensitive are the ones that are too expensive for the common folk, right? Which has really strangely translated to anything over like 300,000 or 400,000.
Yeah.
And so, at least that's what I'm seeing. And so, if you get something that was 800 and they've lowered it to 700, in the Lago area that's on the water, right? Which I'm sure there's plenty of that. You could possibly push them into the 400 or 500 range, if they're desperate enough to get out of it.
They need to sell. If they need to sell, you can. And that's one of those things you can pick and choose your battles there. What you're buying is, I think they're referred to as diminishing assets, because there are only so many lakes within an hour of Austin. And there are only so many lots that are waterfront on those lakes. And so that value over time trends up. I mean, that's my advice. If you fancy waterfront property, if that's a thing for you and you've got the money to do it, that's what I target right now.
The zoning out here in Lago, there's this one lot that pretty famously has this crappy RV on it. And it's an RV on their lot, and then they've got little stairs that go down to their dock, and there you go. It's probably worth $500,000, something like that.
Yeah.
But because location, right? It's on the water.
That's right. So anyway, there you go. I thought it would be fun to kind of throw out a little bit of advice.
I like that.
At the end of the show.
Yeah, I like that, man. I'll tell you real quick, just so the people watching, because everyone loves to know rates. And I don't like to throw out a rate without an APR. I'm here for the RV, yes. But when we were shopping with this local lender, they were coming back with a 6.5% interest rate, and their APR was under 7 but over 6%. And if you really want the specifics, I can show you later. But you used a 6 point. What did you use earlier for the rate?
6.7.
6.0. I would say that.
No, 6.7.
Okay, yeah. So I would say that's very, very close to where things are. Yeah. At par, which always means without paying extra money. Yeah. To get a better rate. That sounds about right. Yeah. Okay.
There you go. Guys, this is what we do on Mondays. And again, if you've got comments after the show, leave them. We'll answer them, even if they're funny comments like talking about beer, drinking, guitar, playing, lenders.
Which I did none of today.
I know,
Sorry.
right? Yeah, the show started a little bit flat, my friend. But anyway, we do it every Monday. We stream this on YouTube and Facebook. And you know what? I don't know a lot of people who are running out predictions on evergreen content. I mean, but you know what? I feel confident in my ability and my data research. I feel confident in your ability. So you know what? If we're wrong, we're wrong. But
Did you just say evergreen?
evergreen on Facebook. I mean on YouTube. That's evergreen content.
Gotcha. Because Evergrande has
Oh yeah, no.
liquidated.
Yes, I know. That's a story. That's for next week, buddy. Rates on houses go up but can go down. Oh God, here we go.
Cars. The cars go down.
Oh, cars go down. I see. I'm sorry. I don't have my glasses on. Sorry, Shelly.
So Shelley, you've got to keep in mind that they're also very heavily influenced by their used market as well, the new and used market, right? And so
different. The rates are different on new and used cars.
yes. However, she's not wrong that they should be the same, because the Fed funds rate is the rate at which banks borrow money, and then they choose to lend the money out to people like car buyers and house buyers too, right? And so you would think that they'd be correlated, but they're correlated to the asset being sold and its value of being reclaimed and then resold later by the bank, right? And that's all done through algorithms, and that's where you lose me. I know enough about that, right? But I'll tell you, I think it has more to do, the rates being lower with the cars. I think that has more to do with the car companies being in pain. I think you'll find new car rates are probably lower than used car rates right now, which it's typically the case, but in today's crazy market, they've been flipping like crazy. 2 years ago, used cars were more expensive than the new ones, right?
Yep.
It was so weird.
Yeah.
Anyways, so
there you go. Every Monday, guys. We'll see you next week, my friend.